Okay, let's talk about Adam Smith. You've definitely heard the name, and you probably think you know exactly what he was all about. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the man and the myth.
Because, yeah, almost everything we think we know about him is just plain wrong. The popular image we have is, well, it's basically a caricature. The reality is so much more interesting, way more complex, and honestly, a lot more human.
You know the stereotype I'm talking about, right? Adam Smith, the high priest of capitalism, the guy who supposedly argued that pure, unfiltered selfishness is what makes the world go round, the one who gave a moral green light to greed.
But to really get his ideas, you have to get the man himself first. And the man, well, let's just say he was not some ruthless corporate titan. He was the classic, eccentric, completely absent-minded professor.
I mean, get this. Far from being some hardened capitalist, Smith was a devoted son, a real mother's boy who never married and lived with his mom for almost his entire life, right up until she passed away at 90. And his eccentricity? Oh, it was legendary. He was famous for wandering the streets, talking to himself, so lost in thought that one person actually described his strange, wavering walk as vermicular. Yeah, that means worm-like. He would literally just bump into things.
The stories are just incredible. One time, he was so wrapped up in explaining some idea about trade that he walked straight into a giant, disgusting tanning pit filled with animal hides. They had to haul him out, covered in who knows what.
My favorite story, though, has to be this one. While making breakfasts, totally lost in thought, he absent-mindedly rolled up a piece of bread and butter, plopped it into his teapot, and poured boiling water over it. After taking a sip, he just calmly declared it was the worst tea he had ever met with.
So that gentle, quirky academic, that's the real Adam Smith. And knowing this is key, because his whole philosophy doesn't start with greed, it starts with the exact opposite. It all begins with his first major book, one that most people have never even heard of.
And this slide really nails the contradiction. The myth says it's all about selfishness. But Smith's first book, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, argues that sympathy for other people is a fundamental part of who we are.
I mean, listen to the very first sentence of that book. He kicks things off by saying, look, sure, people can be selfish, but there's also something in our nature that makes us care about other people's happiness even if we get nothing out of it. This is the foundation for everything else he wrote.
And that brings us to his masterpiece, The Wealth of Nations. And this book isn't a U-turn from his earlier work on morality, it's an extension of it. He believed that our sense of sympathy is what creates the trust you need for a complex economy to even work.
The book's central idea, the engine for creating prosperity, is the division of labor. It's simple, really. Instead of one person trying to do everything, we each specialize. We get really, really good at one specific task, and that efficiency is what creates massive wealth.
Smith's classic example is a pin factory. He pointed out that one person, working alone, could maybe make like 1 pin a day, 20 if they were lucky. But in a factory, the job is broken down into tiny steps. As you see here, one guy just draws the wire. Another straightens it, a third cuts it, and on and on.
So what's the result? It's staggering. By dividing the work, a little workshop with just 10 guys could pump out 48,000 pins in a single day. That comes out to 4,800 pins per person. That right there is the explosive power of specialization.
Okay, so how do all these specialists get what they need from each other? This is where that super famous quote comes in. He's saying that self-interest is the motivation. The baker doesn't bake bread because he loves you, he does it to make a living. But by serving his own interest, he ends up serving yours. It's a win-win system.
And all of this leads to his most famous and most misunderstood concept, the invisible hand. It's this idea that when millions of people are all just pursuing their own goals, it can accidentally end up benefiting everybody. But what's really amazing is that in a book that's 1,000 pages long, Smith only mentions this iconic phrase once.
Now, here's where the caricature of Adam Smith really falls apart. He wasn't a cheerleader for any one group. He was a deep, practical skeptic, and he pointed that skepticism at absolutely everyone, especially the rich and powerful.
You think he was pro-business? Think again. He was incredibly suspicious of merchants. He famously wrote that whenever business owners get together, even just for fun, the conversation always ends in a conspiracy to raise prices and rip off the public.
He said you should treat any proposal from them with the most suspicious attention.
And he had even less respect for the big landlords. He called them indolent, basically lazy, because their money just rolls in without them having to do any work. He even said they were often too ignorant and lazy to understand how public policies actually worked.
And for anyone who thinks Smith wanted zero government, well, his actual to-do list for the government is a real eye-opener. Sure, national defense, a justice system, of course, but he also argued for government-funded roads and canals, for banking regulations, and, this one's a shocker for many, for universal public education.
So, when you strip away all the myths, who was Adam Smith really? What's his actual legacy?
The bottom line is this. Adam Smith was not an ideologue. He wasn't pro-business or anti-government. He was a practical philosopher who was just breathtakingly honest about how people and systems work, and he applied that skepticism to everyone equally.
And his impact is just hard to overstate. As the Nobel Prize-winning economist Ronald Coase said, for the last 200 years, the main job of economists has basically just been filling in the gaps in the system that this gentle, absent-minded professor from Scotland first laid out.
Which really leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? If we can get the popular image of the father of economics so completely wrong, what other huge historical ideas have we just accepted as true without ever taking a closer look?